You have to throw it on for an hour to get the bark back, but I think I wasn't happy with the bark when I wrapped it. Maybe she'll darken up. Checking out to see what the dogs are into. Man, I think it looks to be working out. I don't jinx myself. No, I'm gonna wish I drank more water tomorrow. Look at that. It sought its temp. It found it. It's holding it. Feeling good about it. There's nothing we can do for at least another 2, 3 hours. It's watch the smoker smoke. The only thing there is to do is move the garden hose around. That's soak the lawn. Reinforcement, disciplining the dog. Dug a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's where she scratched when she did her business, but no digging in this yard anymore. Fighting it hard for a few years. Between the dogs and the chickens, they'll make half-meter deep holes. Pain in the ass. But the freaking smokers rocking and rolling. Happy about that. Looking good. Looking good. Looking great. Your thing, little guy. Your thing. Oh, I have fantastic grass out here in Texas. Beautiful grass, man. My daughter can frolic on it. We wrestle on it. Nice and soft. Actually really proud of it. It's a minimal input lawn. Whoa! I was tripping. It's a minimal input lawn. All I do is dump some charcoal on it, or ash. I dump the ash on it because I have chickens that free range on it. So I get a shitload of nitrogen. I balance it out with the potassium and the ash. I do not scalp. I do not dethatch. I do none of this. I simply add water and dump the ash from my barbecue pit on. And I mow. It took me several years to get to this point, but I've selected for a grass that does great in this environment. I wish it was a little bit more shade tolerant. As you can see, a very clear shadow line underneath my pecan tree. But otherwise, the grass in the middle is great. I flood it every now and then. Not even really flood it. I soak it. Soak it is probably the best. Soak it every now and then. And besides that, I dump ash from the barbecue pit on it. That's it. Chickens take care of the rest. They scratch. They fertilize. They replant. Just gotta give them a little bit of seed every now and then. They'll even spread out mulch for you. You just gotta put a little bit of seed in the pile of mulch. And you dump like 2-3 wheelbarrows of mulch, throw 10 cents worth of seed in the middle of it, and it's gone. It's spread out within an hour, hour and a half. Like, that's cheap labor, 10 cents, you know. The chickens take care of it. Embrace the chickenness of the chicken and let them work for you, man. All I do is dump water on it every now and then. Pretty straightforward. To be fair, to get it to this point took a lot of work. The first 2 years, we put a pig on the property, and he uprooted all the weeds and ate down most of it, all the invasive species and all the weeds. And what came back was grass. And then after that, the chickens take care of it from. But same kind of thing. For 2 years, we just fed a pig out here. The pig till everything up, eat all the weeds, even go for the roots of the weeds, which you can't do. I mean, you can do, but the downfall is he leaves little holes and divots all over your yard, and you have to go back and backfill that with compost. That's not a deal, especially if you're doing chickens, because you're producing your own compost. Like, it's all a system, man, and let the system work for you, and find a way to work the system versus being crushed by, you know. People complain about their chickens. I mean, really, you just got to direct them. People complain about their pigs uprooting stuff, but really, you just got to direct them. They're working for you. This is like a tenet of the permaculture lifestyle, honestly. And the smoker's working. We're irrigating the lawn, hanging out with my friends on Twitch. We're rocking and rolling, man. Having a good night. Having a good night. Is watching the graph, the data log on the data logger, and the cloud. the meat heat. Eventually we'll get to where it's edible. It's a waiting game now. As I mentioned earlier, the smoker has everything it needs. It has plenty of fuel. It has water to buffer that fuel. It has air. It has a thermo controller that is regulating the airflow. It's a redneck crock pot at this point. Walk away from it. Unfortunately, you see the fight it took to get to this point in that graph. The first few hours, I'm almost certain I had wet charcoal or not hydrated. What's damp charcoal? At least it came on a truck from somewhere else that had a lot more humidity than we did, because it's never performed this way. And you see me trying to battle it and losing that battle in the graph, because the red line is what the set point was. The black line is an inch over the grate. And I opened it every 30 minutes and spritzed it, but you can see I was fighting a losing battle up until I added new charcoal, I added fuel, moved everything around, and then it started flowing good. Really doing some cooking. And then I opened it, I added more fuel, I added the water. That's where the dip occurred. And we're slowly getting back up. It bounced around on it and found it. It sought equilibrium and found it. And it's just kind of holding it there now, around the 280 mark, for the next few hours to push past the stall. Not much you can do to fight it, besides just keep putting BTUs into it. I found a constant equal rate best. A lot of folks will like crank up the heat to try to push past the stall. Some folks will dial down the heat to get past the stall, all sorts of things. I found holding a steady temp through the stall is the best way to push past it. In the morning, we'll catch up with it and it will be really close to being done. We'll unwrap it and put it back on the smoker for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Get our bark back where we want it. We'll rewrap it then and put it in a cooler, wrapped in a beach towel. Let it rest for a few hours. And right when that few hours is over, it'll be time to cut it up and serve it to my family and church folks. I don't think anybody's going to complain. They like my barbecue already. And nobody really talks too much smack about free barbecue. So it tends to work out well for you. But either way, it's a good cook. We've had a good night. It's rocking and rolling. And we just got to let it keep rocking and rolling. Got everything it needs. And what it needs is not fucked with. So I've taken to irrigating the lawn. The grass is looking great. It's well hydrated. I'm somewhere behind it. I flood a little bit. Great, man. I'm really proud of my lawn. Moving to Virginia. Doing our thing, man. Rocking and rolling. Gotta let her push past it. It's gonna hang out at around the 160 mark for a long time. I'm gonna wake up in the morning and it's only gonna be like 170. It sucks. maybe 190. Best. It's gonna be 190 after a 3-hour nap. And move around the irrigation real quick. Keep the yard flooding effectively. We only want to flood it about, half inch, and then it will absorb in within the next 15 minutes. It's actually the most effective to irrigate. Doing that, you don't lose anything to evaporation when you're sprinkling. And the main advantage of sprinkling is you can even your coverage out. Isolated flood irrigation is superior, which is why water regulations, allow you to do hand watering and hand soaking. And me walking this hose around, letting it just piss water down, dump water out, is actually more efficient than sprinkling, and losing a lot of that to aerosol effects and to evaporative effects. Almost all the water that goes into my yard when I flooded it at midnight, 1, 2, 3, 6 a.m. days on my yard, and becomes productive water via evapotranspiration. Even if that productive water is just in my grass, because I get significant utility out of having a nice lawn and grass for my daughter to play in. And she gets utility out of it too, because the literature demonstrates that she's going to be healthier for it. And we do all organic farming, not because evangelical about it or political about it, but because we get value added from it. And I don't want to put anything on my property that I'm not willing to have my daughter eat a handful of dirt. That's what kids do. They eat dirt. So by virtue, we're an organic farm. Even though we've been fallow for 2 years and all I do is grow grass right now and eggs. But the chickens graze the grass, so I guess I'm growing my own feed and offsetting those costs. And that's exactly how I'm going to justify it in the books. I just need more time
Chaz
to
Bono's
dedicate
manly
to the
beard
freaking garden.
said,
But
"Hoi hoi."
Chaz, so glad to see you, sir. How are you and yours doing, man? Hope you're doing well. We're fighting wet charcoal and weird conditions, trying to get this brisket cooked. We're getting close, as you can see. It's going to hang out at the 160 to 180 mark for probably 2-3 hours, though, which is a perfect time to take a nap. But I hope you and yours are doing well. I'm going to go move that garden hose over a little bit. Like I said, I'm just soaking the lawn.
Chaz Bono's
And
manly
watching
beard
the graphs.
said,
Graph.
"I'm a fan of your Unabomber's beard."
That's not who I'm modeling it after. Dang. Cute. Did I put a hoodie on? Let me move this garden hose. Tell me how you're doing, Chaz. My daughter will never appreciate the amount of work that goes into it. Her little spit of grass she gets to roll around on. That little area of grass is going to be perfect. The best I can give her, man. Uh-oh. That sounds like a dirty song. Here. As long as you guys don't. Just checking out my graphs. This whole monitor is dedicated to the smoker. For decreasing efficacy. I think I'm going to dump some more charcoal into it. For decreasing temperature. At a fairly alarming rate. It's indicative of running out of fuel. I had hoped I had enough fuel to keep myself above 250 for the next 2-3 hours. I think if I dump a little bit more into it, I'll be there. Yeah. Ow. Oh, we got plenty of fuel. We're doing good. Got everything we need. Might have actually made things a little worse by adding more to it. I'm gonna throw some really dry mesquite chips into it. Not for any kind of smoke flavor, but just to kind of get my fire going more evenly. Want more. Keeping this door open for a second is actually going to help me. I'll equalize the temps. Here's some steel rolling around. Having the door open is going to add some oxygen to that fire and get it stoked. That's what I'm after. Good, man. I think we're rocking and rolling. Didn't lose too much temp. We got our fire stoked. We added more fuel. We should see a dip and then a spike. Uh-oh. Right there. Oh, that shot. That looked like. Not too bad. Do you see that dip right there? And it's going to spike, come right back to where it needs to be. And so says I. Doing good, man. A lot of smoke is coming out, which means that we're burning wood. Our temps are gonna peak. The wood is gonna burn off, and I've ignited the charcoal, and we're gonna hold it there for the next 2-3 hours at around the 275, 270 mark, and push past our stall. You may have noticed that the graph for the meat has leveled off, and it's going to hang out there for a while, and it's going to ramp up a little bit and then plateau, and then ramp up a little bit and plateau, and then it's going to approach the temperature we want. That's when we're in like the red zone, and it becomes mostly a feel thing, and I abandon all instrumentation I've been depending upon up until that point. I'm going to keep it in this time to like document my decisions. But the last little bit is down to feel about when the brisket is done. It gets wrapped up in a beach towel inside of a cooler, and either gets put in the sun or gets put in the air conditioner, depending upon when mealtime is. That's a whole nother battle. It's timing, equilibrium, patient if as it approaches that 140 mark. But it's going to go down from 202 degrees, equilibrate the temperature to about 100, 350 degrees. Then we cut it and serve it. There's this whole battle about slowly ramping up the temperature where you want it in the right way, and then slowly ramping it down at the precise time you want. I've been able to nail it 9 out of 10 times. And instrumentation is critical at that point. I open it and poke it a lot. I'm really thinking about cutting holes in my cooler so I can run temperature probe. Better keep an eye on it. There's an art and a science to all this. And I'm all science until the last minute, and then I go art. I feel. I use the temperature probe mostly to make sure we're above safe point, but I use the temperature probe as a feeler gauge. And feel the meat. It sounds kind of esoteric and difficult to track, but I'll walk you guys through it tomorrow. Right now, we're just putting BTUs into it. Honestly, you could put this in the oven at this point. It's wrapped up. It's ready to go. A lot of people will wrap it in foil, and then you're essentially steaming it, and there's no reason why. I wrap in butcher paper, and there is permeability to the butcher paper that allows some smoke to pass through. Now, it is contentious, and the literature suggests it does nothing. But the anecdotal body of evidence suggests that it imparts more smoke around to it and increases your bark. And I can side with that, especially on the bark side of things, because you're not steaming it. You're still cooking it. And juices will drip through, and juices will saturate, and it's a different kind of thing. I still think that something's happening by wrapping in butcher paper versus wrapping in aluminum foil. Yeah, this is all debatable. It's all debatable. I'm not saying that my way is the right way. What's worked for me in the past, and what I keep doing, time after time, and after spending a significant amount of time researching this. It was also a good time to emphasize the geographic variations. It goes without saying that San Antonio brisket is a lot different from Kansas City brisket for a lot of different reasons. And what I cook is backyard style West Texas brisket, West Texas barbecue. Very indicative of our area. I know it is because I've harvested, except for the chips within there. It's this is our food. This is our culture. This is our, what we have been eating. The archaeological record in the area shows that we've been cooking meat this way. We've been eating some sort of mammal, be it mammoth or be it bovid, for at least 12,000 years, cooking it over mesquite in this area. And the archaeological record shows that. It's so it's hard to say that it's like not part of who we are, You are what you eat, I guess. That's my research, or at least a facet of my research is looking at the link between natural resources and culture and who we are because of what we have. And yeah, man, I love my barbecue. Spent a lot of time researching. Spent a lot of time cooking it. I found what works for me, and that's it. Follow along and get yourself a good brisket. Oh, I'm pretty free and open with my barbecue technique because there's, a lot of it's science, but at the end of the day, it's art, and a lot of it can't be replicated. And competitions are won and lost versus one or two shakes on the rub or a minute or two on the smoker. And it comes down to just experience, honestly. Cooking enough times to know what a good brisket should feel like before you unwrap it, so that as you're cooking it, you don't have to unwrap it and release that goodness. But this one's gonna be different because I want to darken it up. We'll take a look. Maybe the bark will be good. I don't think the bark's gonna be good enough. I want to probably put it back on the heat directly for an hour, maybe 30 minutes, to darken everything back up, get my bark back where I want, looking pretty, mostly for the pictures and for the presentation. Because the only way you guys are gonna see the results is through the pictures and on the Instagram and stuff like that. So we want it to look good just as much as it tastes good. And honestly, I ain't worried about the taste. I'm trying to make it look good and taste good. We'll check it. We'll see how it turns out. Everything is looking good. We have enough fuel. The fan is going to figure itself out and pull itself back up and slowly lose that fight for the next 2-3 hours. But we'll keep ourselves, excuse me, right where we need to be for cooking. And if I open it up and fuck with it, it's just going to make it worse. So here we are in the waiting game portion. See, we're doing good. We're doing good. Slowly decrease temperature, push past the throttle. I'm feeling good about where we're at. We're gonna burn through our fuel at a steady state, declining equilibrium, just how I want. Wake up in a few hours, throw some more fuel on, add a bunch of oxygen to it, get ourselves going. I'll flip it over. I'm gonna do some experimental probes, see how it feels. Maybe an hour or two more, then put it on for an hour, hour and a half, maybe as short as half an hour if I have my temperatures right, to get my bark back. Wrap it up and let it cool back down and serve it. It's both simultaneously extremely difficult and simple at the same time. The procedure is easy, sticking to it and making it happen is the hard part. Because it is all too easy to have a nice piece of brisket, a $50, $80 piece of meat turn into a bad pot roast because you didn't cook it right. You can also buy a really nice $150, $200 meat, cook it shitty, and it tastes worse than a $50 brisket from HEB. It's broken my heart. I've eaten at family dinners and stuff like that where they got like the prime rib, the best meat they could find, and then just like stuck it in the freaking oven and turned it into pot roast basically, and it wasn't very good. Like if I had this meat and a day and some wood, it would have been. And that's what barbecue was. The brisket was the shittiest, worst piece of meat. It was cast aside, and folks figured out how to make it and cook it right, and now it's the prize piece. Go figure. I mean, whole cows are judged on mostly because it's accessible, but there's a lot that goes into that. Let's see where we're at. Steady state or finding cool. Okay. There's stuff I can do to maybe mitigate some, but it also has the opportunity to fuck it all up, sit here and deal with it for a few hours. Think we're at a point. Watch it for the next 5-10 minutes. We're getting very close to a point where we can walk away and just let it cook. The old adage is if you're looking, you ain't cooking. Even before that, the boiled pot or the watch pot never boiled. We just need to put BTUs into it and wait. And if I start trying to dick with it, it probably will end up worse than. Let it do its thing, man. The ambient air temperature is slowly decreasing, and internal temperature of the meat is increasing. We swap temperatures. Interesting time. I think it has a lot to do with depth probe. Why, at the end of it, you just do it by feel. It's like the probe only measures where that probe is at, anything surrounding it. Like if you take a biopsy, you only measure where that tissue is taken, not the surrounding area. So you could have false negatives, you could have false positives too. But I find it's best to look at the long term. And that's telling me we're holding good. Not precisely at the temperature I want, but at an acceptable temperature. They just push us back a little later, and I'll have less time chill. That can easily be mitigated by a lot of variables. Just in the amount of wraps the bath towel has after it's been cooked, opening, closing the lid at prescribed time, leaving it open, thought too, putting it outside in the sun, putting it inside in the air conditioner. Agitation appears to have an effect. Driving around in the back of your pickup in a cooler appears to impart more BTUs into it and slow down the chill time. There's some physics that back up that reason, but it seems like it would be negligible amount. But enough people have documented the phenomena to warrant it at least be discussed. If you're the kind of folk that like to discuss barbecue in a scientific format, which I am. Either way, I'm rambling now. Long story short, regardless of what happens over the next 2-3 hours, I'll be able to correct for it. And there's nothing we can do to it besides let it just. So it's the waiting game. The waiting game. Perhaps the napping game. Oh, excuse me. Dog is looking off on the horizon and freaking me out. Go get him. Go get him. It's the waiting game now, y'all. We've come a long way in this playlist. What we started at. Okay though, I'm feeling it. Honestly, we're just like I said, waiting for the freaking meat to push past the stall. Could be 2 hours. It could be 4 hours. Just three in the morning, 3 hours a week, 6 to start foraging when it's cool. Finish the barbecue. Still looking great. Everything's rocking. Just a waiting game now. Oh, this is Hey Steve. That's why. Hey Steve is a favorite band of ours in this house. Steve is the alter ego of my daughter. Anytime anybody causes any trouble, it was Steve. What do you see, dog? Go get it. I love my dog. Jeez. That's a good one too. We'll do that. If you don't love him, it's okay. I don't want you to. He's mine. There we go. Well, folks, we'll see you maybe 2-3 hours. I'll get an alert on my phone if anything goes awry. If not, just text me. And about the 9-hour mark, we'll get to a good solid days of foraging and finish up the barbecue. Thanks everybody for hanging out to this point, and we'll see you in the morning. Love you guys.